What could be more motivating than a glass of Tropicana orange juice in the morning? Achieving your goals, making money, de-stressing? Okay, maybe they're not as good as orange juice, but they are still pretty nice. Welcome to the Orange Juice Podcast, where you'll get motivating and action-provoking content without all the pulp. Your host, me, Reggie Davis, brings orange juice to inspire the world with stories and ideas, both personal and shared, to help you peel back your fears and squeeze out your best self. Welcome back to the Orange Juice Podcast. Thank you so much for joining me today. This is Reggie, your host, and today we have a highly anticipated episode because of a situation I dealt with this week. I'm going to read it to you guys. So basically, it's a text message conversation I had. Randomly, a DM comes in, and the guy says, "Yo, bro, can you do me a favor?" I respond with a question mark. He says, "Can I borrow 25?" I said, "No." And just so you can understand, I literally just said N-O. And then he says, "Yo, F you." Obviously, I'm censoring that, but yo, F you. And then I send him a question mark. "All right, man, have a good day." And so I'll post a picture so you all can kind of see that conversation, because that was the entire conversation. And no, definitely not spam. I'm pretty sure that was him. And, just take a moment and process that. I got a lot of different reactions to that. He said, "Can I borrow 25?" Meaning that he was going to send it back, right? I just said no. I guess I could have told him, well, why not? If he asked me, I could have said no because, I have a lot going on or something like that or whatever. And so, or there's other ways I think people might have took it, like, but before I even get into that, what if I told you I hadn't talked to this man in 10 years? And when we did talk, we weren't friends. This was someone I knew from one of my first jobs in 2012 when I worked at the movie theaters. Does he deserve a reason then? Well, another thing I think people might have thought about was the amount of money. Like, okay, it's $25. He didn't ask me for $100 or, $500. And he did say borrow it. So today's episode is about borrowing money and lending money. I believe in, at least my Bible, it teaches me that, I'm supposed to be the lender and not the borrower. I'm supposed to be blessed to be a blessing to others. How do you decipher when it's a good time to give, to loan money out? When is it the right time to loan money? Am I saying to you guys that you shouldn't give to people on the streets? Should you not lend money to your friends, your family, or something like that? Let's talk about it. I hope that at the end of this episode we can have a real discussion, because even just from the short responses and like the little likes I saw, I know there were a lot of mixed opinions about this, but it gives a good opportunity for us to consider what financial literacy looks like in this method. So let's talk about it. So firstly, I'm going to give a couple of points. My first point is personally my opinion, and someone can correct me if they're wrong, if they feel like I'm wrong, but asking for $25 will never solve a problem. That's something I always consider. Like, a low amount of money like that, like even $50. $50 can't solve a problem in today's world. It can barely, like, $25 can't solve breakfast. Can't fill up a gas tank. Not my gas tank. And I have a hybrid car with, like, a 14-gallon tank. It used to be able to get filled up easy. No. $25 is not even going to get you DoorDash. I could go on. $25 can barely get you a few streaming services. So $25 is not solving anybody's problems. And so that's one thing I want you to consider out. Like, I think I would almost feel more comfortable someone asking me for more money, because that amount of money can't solve a problem. You're not short on the bill. Your bill wasn't $25. That's the truth. But okay. Oh, and actually, the other part of that is that because it's such a low amount of money, one thing you can know is when someone asks you for an amount of money like $25, you know for 100% fact they're asking a lot of people for money. Nobody asks for $25 because as soon as they get this 25, their problems are solved. That's not the case. They're asking for $25 because they're asking a lot of people for $25. And so here's the second point that I wanted us to consider. A lot of this I actually got from Autumn, so props to her with that. But whenever someone asks a question, a yes or no question specifically, there is no need for you. The only person who needs to give a reason is the person who is asking that question. The reason being is if you say yes, like no reason is required. But for some reason, when we say no, we feel like there's a harshness to no, but there is no harshness to no. You asked a yes or no question. No was just your answer at the time. I don't, like, no one is entitled to, he's not entitled, this person, I obviously don't know him. But even if this was like, my best friend or someone else or my mom or something like that, saying no, no, because I have a lot going on, or no, it's just a tough time for me, I'm trying to save up for something, that makes it seem like the other person is entitled to something that is mine. No one is entitled to anything that is yours. So saying yes is me deciding, okay, I'm going to share something that is mine with them. But saying no is saying my resources that I have for myself are for myself. I think a lot of people have to get away from this mentality that people have to, like, you owe other people things when you do not. I'm all for giving, but you don't owe anyone anything. It is not, you don't owe a random person, especially in this instance, $25, or a reason for why you don't want to give them $25. Now, for me, it makes me think about the old saying, how does it go? The easiest way to make someone stop talking to you is if you lend them some money. Now, personally, I've had some experiences with this. There was this girl in high school. Well, I met her in high school. I'm pretty sure the situation was a little after. And so I wouldn't say we were the best of friends. We were close enough. Like, I brought her to church a couple of times. She met my family, like my mom, my sister. She's, I knew about stuff she had going on, like with her family and stuff like that. So close enough friends. And so I remember one time, I have a car. She doesn't at the time. So she asked me for like $40 once. Said she needed it for whatever reason. Said she wanted to borrow it for a little bit. She said she'd give it back. And I was like, okay. I remember I tried to figure out what was going on to try to help her. I think I tried to give her some advice and stuff like that. She kept saying, yeah, that's all good. That's good. She said she really needs the money. Hooked her up with it. After that, it was probably like the next day. She asked me for a ride to Popeyes and some more money. And so I'm sure some of you are already like, what is going on? And it was my friend. I said yes. I picked her up, drove her to Popeyes, and while we're out, she's like, oh, wait, I'm so sorry. I need to stop at this place and this place and this place. So I'm just driving her around. She owes me like $80 at this point. It was like to the point where there might even have been a third day where she asked me to take her somewhere. And long story short, someone said she's going to ask for it again. And I was like, oh, I don't believe you. And she did. And so I said no. She basically asked me one more time after that. And I said no. And that was our last convo. Never heard from her again. I lost $80 and some off days of work and, definitely some gas money. But some people really aren't after a solution. I know looking back now that $80, just like the 50 and 25, just like 150, like that's not solving a problem. Not a real problem. You're not having a serious problem that little amounts of money like that can solve. But I didn't realize that at the time, and I gave some money away. And the reason why thinking like this can be like seriously dangerous, I'm going to let you guys in on the secret. I have a serious people pleasing problem. And it's kind of weird to say that, but it's like so serious to the point that I recognize it's an issue that I've bought books on it. I've really seek counsel on it because I realize that if you prioritize someone else's feelings over your own, and if you will go out of your way for other people too much, it's almost like you're respecting the fact that they have dreams and goals, but not respecting the fact that you do also. it is going to be extremely hard for you to be successful in life. And this is something I've learned by you trying to be everyone else's help or savior, however you want to put it. In business, this is something that's coming up a lot. In business, I've had the opportunity to work with friends in multiple different ways, kind of at partners and people work under me. And there have been quite a few times when that's led to me being disappointed or surprised. And that led to me getting burned, for lack of better words. Burned, losing some money, or just straight up disappointed. It's real easy to act a certain way by a message. To say that you're invested in something when you're not. It's real easy to talk the talk, but as a forewarning to all of you guys, whether you're lending money or whether you're looking for a new partner or, you're just taking some of your energy and putting it into someone else, be very careful, be mindful, and have a process. Take your time on that. I know I mentioned to you guys in my last episode about how, I've had people working underneath me and that's caused me a really hard time. But there's been times I've taken some of the business's money and said, okay, well, we're going to branch out and start doing this, or we're going to branch out and start doing that. And I put money into other people's, so they could kind of work with me. Or I put money into thoughts, or even if it wasn't just financial, just a lot of time and thought into making an idea come into play. The truth of the matter is, whether you're trying to help someone in business, whether you're trying to help them personally, no matter what, essentially the system kind of looks the same way, where there's someone else who says they need help. Oftentimes they're looking for financial help and you're looking for them to have a solution so they don't need financial help anymore. If you go out of your way to try to create a system for someone else and they're not ready to really receive it, you're just throwing away your time. You're throwing away your money. I could have given them the $25. It wouldn't have solved anything. Just like in the same way I've given other people, business structures and business ideas that I know could have made them well over the amount of money they seem to need at the time. But you'll get met with resistance. In the same way, I'm sure other people have given out some money, smaller money, and said, hey, why don't you start doing this? Why don't you start doing that? I think that people aren't ready, really looking for a solution. Some people are just comfortable with the Band-Aids they put on themselves, and that's how certain issues get perpetuated and get worse to the point where you see bigger issues. I believe that rich people and wealthy people should give, but I also think that you have to be wise enough to consider your own situation and see when does it make sense to give money and when it doesn't. Unfortunately, having your heart moved and being able to and giving to someone on the street might not always be the best case. I try not to get away from the thought that everybody on the street is like on drugs, and that's why, and that's common. Like, I think a lot of people were like, okay, well, there's so many videos out there that says they'll take this money and they don't really need it. I think like you're going to give to situations and you are going to get, like, someone is going to get over on you. But there also is going to be some people who need help. However you want to discern that, whether it's prayer, whether it's, okay, I'm not going to do it all the time. However, that's the case. But no matter what, you can't pour from an empty cup. Make sure that you're in a place where you can comfortably give so that you can give. And also, try to keep it within your circle. It's one thing if your mom asks. I know I said my mom and my best friend earlier. First of all, my mom and my best friend could have anything. But that's something I'm working on. So if someone who is close to you does ask, I'm not saying to say no. I'm saying to consider yourself and your ability to actually handle whatever request is being asked of you. And also consider if you'll actually be able to solve a problem with what you're doing. Because sometimes knowing that you won't solve a problem is good enough reason for you to take your $25 and get your own DoorDash. Especially if you work for your own money. Take your $25 and go down to the casino and try to make rent. I make a lot of inside jokes referring to my old episodes. So, that being said, when you're in a position to borrow money, I don't think it's a bad thing to ask for money. I think that a lot of times people ask for money for the wrong reasons. Jeff Bezos would have never started Amazon if he didn't borrow some money from his parents. A lot of rich people who are rich and would never be rich if they didn't borrow money from the bank. And that's okay. But notice the bank isn't loaning you $25. I'm sorry, I'm going to keep saying that. Anyway, so just really consider what that money is used for and have a plan. A solid plan is going to have how much money you need, why you need that money, when you're going to take it, and when you'll give it back. Being an honorable person means that you would do what you said you would do, and if any part of that plan changes, you update the lender as soon as possible. But also, I think it might be a great idea to, before you consider borrowing money, especially if you don't need that much, I would say consider how you could make some on your own. Why are you in the position that you need to borrow money from a friend or a neighbor? Borrow so much money that your friends wouldn't have it to give it to you. I'd say your friends don't, well, I don't know who's listening to me right now, but I'm assuming that most of my audience right now doesn't have friends who could loan them the entire amount to pay off a house or a mortgage. So go to the bank. That's a good reason to borrow money. Or, you know what I mean? Like saying, hey, getting a couple people who are now your investors and say, I want to borrow $5,000, $10,000 to start this business and this is my plan. That is a good reason to borrow money. But if you are short on your bills, odds says that there's some money that there's some poor planning that's being done. That's really what it comes down to, right? Yeah, your job pays you or they're not paying enough or whatever, but you knew that. Nobody asked to see someone's financial statements when they're asked to borrow money, but I guarantee you one thing. The guy who asked me for that money, I'm sure he's not doing everything he can to make sure he doesn't need to ask people for $25 or however much money. While I'm sure of that, and while I'm sure I probably would have been looked at crazy if I would have said, hey man, thanks for asking me for this money. Can I see your financial statements, or can you give me a detailed plan of how you're going to give me the money back or why you need the money? I'm sure I would look crazy then too. My suggestion to everyone who's listening to me, who's ever been in a position to need to borrow money, figure out why you need to borrow the money. Because if you are asking people for a little amount of money like that, or if you find yourself like many Americans, I think it's like 60% of Americans can't handle a $1,000 emergency. If you're in that position, there's some poor financial planning that's being done, and that's just a straight up fact. Thank you guys so much for joining me today. I hope that as a result of this, I will inspire some people to give and to not give when it makes sense. That being said, thank you so much for coming to the Orange Juice Podcast. Peace and love.